Okay, so the second most likely breakout candidate for the South Carolina Gamecocks this upcoming season is, again, probably somebody that multiple fans will maybe think about when you hear his name. But again, it's just somebody that I just can't stay away from, and that is defensive end Jordan Burch. Now, Jordan Burch, just like Marshawn Lloyd, was also rated a 5-star recruit and the 17th best player in the 2020 recruiting class, according to Rivals. He showed flashes during his freshman campaign, but he was marred by some nagging injuries and, of course, the fact that it was the COVID shortened season. In his freshman campaign, however, Jordan Burch would still rack up 19 tackles, 2.5 tackles for loss, and 1 fumble recovery in 8 game appearances. In his sophomore season, Burch would once again be a backup behind fifth-year senior Aaron Sterling. He would still, however, play in all 13 games, recording 26 total tackles, including 2.5 tackles for loss, and a pick six against Eastern Illinois in week 1 of the season, where he really got to showcase just how good of an athlete he is for a man that plays the defensive end position at his size. Now, in the spring game this year, Jordan Burch was flying around and doing a great job of setting the edge on the weak side of the offensive formation, and, in my opinion, was one of the best players on the night on defense in terms of recognizing what plays were being run very quickly. And just to let y'all know how good I thought Jordan Burch did in that game, I had him at a final grade of +6 in the spring game when comparing the amount of positive plays he had to the amount of negative plays he had. Now, why do I believe Jordan Burch will break out this season? Well, kind of like Marshawn Lloyd in one sense, I think he's going to benefit from finally getting a long-awaited chance to be a starting defensive end in the Gamecock defense. He has had to, of course, wait his turn. He's had multiple really solid, experienced veterans that have been in front of him since he has been here at South Carolina. And with Aaron Sterling and Kingsley Nabari both now gone, he and Jordan Strachan on the opposite side are going to get their chance to show the SEC and college football what they can do being the primary guys on an SEC defense. I think that Jordan Burch has all of the athletic tools that you could possibly want in a defensive end. He's a guy that is extremely explosive. He has fantastic straight line speed, and he has been known as a great athlete since his time at the Hammond School in Columbia, South Carolina, where he played high school ball at. He has always been a man amongst boys, and yes, maybe you could say that him now playing SEC football compared to the football he's playing in high school caught up to him a little bit at first, but there's no doubt when you watch Jordan Burch on film and during games, Jordan Burch is more often than not the best athlete in his one-on-one matchup, regardless of who he is facing. Another thing to keep in mind with Jordan Burch, this will be his second year in Clayton White's defensive scheme, which means that this is the first time in Jordan Burch's 3-year career that he is not learning a new scheme. You have to remember, he was a part of Travarius Robinson's defense back in 2020, who, of course, was also being directed by head coach Will Muschamp, who was a no defensive guru. And then this past season, of course, was Jordan Burch's first year in Clayton White's new defensive scheme. Now he has had a year to get used to the scheme, to understand what it is that Clayton White looks for his defensive lineman to do, what his responsibilities are, et cetera, et cetera. So I think that that's going to greatly benefit Jordan Burch this next season, and he'll also benefit from being in the weak side defensive end spot more often than the strong side spot, which means he's probably going to go up against tackles that are not going to be the best in pass protection. Now, as I mentioned before, in Clayton White's scheme, he has a quote-unquote edge position, 2 defensive tackles positions, and then a regular defensive end position. The edge position, the big difference there basically is this. The edge position is the spot where he has a defensive end stand up in a 2-point stance, which basically, like I just said, literally means they're just standing straight up. They don't have a hand in the turf when they're getting ready to potentially try to jump the snap from the offense. And for Clayton White's scheme, that is where he will typically put his best pass rusher. Now, Is that meant to be an indictment against Jordan Burch and his pass rushing ability? No, not at all. It's just the fact that Jordan Stratton, who is expected to start in that spot this next season, is a guy that 2 years ago, I think, led the FBS in total sacks with 10.5 at Georgia State. So Jordan Straughn's a guy that, he's such a good pass rusher. You don't want to have him, away from the strong side of the play, especially if you think that it's going to be a passing play. And because of that, right tackles, typically in schemes where you have right-handed quarterbacks, since they're not responsible for protecting the blind side of the quarterback, those right tackles are typically not going to be the most dominant pass protectors. And with everything I just mentioned earlier, scheme knowledge now being even better than it was last year, all the athletic tools that Jordan Burch brings to the table, and obviously somebody who I think is going to have a big chip on his shoulder in regards to finally getting a chance to show fans what he can do and why he was rated a 5-star coming out of high school. I think Jordan Burch is primed for a really solid year in 2022.